Good evening all, welcome to the Valley where we've got one last lawnmower to contend with, but hopefully he'll be soon gone. One of them's already gone. And the FA Cup fourth round draw has just been completed. Norwich were in it, they were the last ball to be drawn out, and they are going away to Wolves, Premier League opposition, thanks to a 1-0 win here at Charlton. But it's one that they can't travel away with too much satisfaction about, particularly because Charlton clattered a header against the crossbar in injury time. But a 1-0 win thanks to Milot Rashica returning after a month out with that groin injury and scoring his first goal for the club. A very relieving goal because it not only sends Norwich through, avoids an upset, but also avoids a club record of 6 consecutive games without a goal. It also brings an end to the run of 5 consecutive defeats. Of course, that carries on in the Premier League. And 3 days' time, we'll be back down here in London against West Ham when they will try to build on this. But we can say, well, I can say with all certainty that if they play anything like they did in the first half of this game, they will get absolutely slaughtered at West Ham. The fact that it was 0-0 at half-time was almost a bit ridiculous. Charlton had given it a good go, but they're only mid-table in League One. They have had a bit of a resurgence. I teed that up, haven't I? Because they've now got the loudest lawnmower I've ever heard appeared. Lawnmowers at football grounds after games. They were really, really poor in the first half. If Charlton had just had a bit of quality, then they could have, and they probably still should have, had the lead. But Dean Smith reacted, thankfully, because I was feeling that was almost into the proportions of being an embarrassing performance in the first half. He reacted with a triple substitution at half-time, brought on Rashica, Teemu Pukki and Brandon Williams, took off Dimitris Giannoulis, Christos Jolis and Kieran Dowell. And the second half, they got gradually better, but certainly took control. Charlton ran out of puff. Rashica and Pukki looked like Premier League players coming on against a League One team, and that's what you wanted. Williams was pretty good as well. And in the end, Norwich, based on the second half, just about deserved their win. They had other chances. They peppered the goal in the second half. They were shooting towards the 2,260 away fans that made the journey here to be at the Valley, and it ended up being a fairly positive end. Not the most exciting cup draw. Molyneux, Wolves, they will probably make some changes. Maybe John Ruddy in goal. We shall see. That will be the weekend of February 4th to the 7th. So they've got a bit of a winter break after the Watford game, which is, if I'm getting the date right, Friday, January 21st. So then they've got a week break. Then the following week they'll go to Wolves. Pardon me, but they avoided extra time here today. I'll give Rashica my man of the match because he's the only contender, really. And I will give him an 8, which is maybe a little bit generous, but in the circumstances, coming back from over a month out of injury, picking up where he left off almost, he looked the standout player, no doubt about it. And hopefully, as we've all been saying, really, haven't we, that if Norwich are going to turn this around, which seems unlikely in the Premier League, they're going to have to do something dramatic. It's more than likely going to need Norman and Rashica in the thick of it. Norman, we're probably still 2 or 3 weeks away before we even talk about him being back in the team, sadly. Maybe even that FA Cup game at Wolves could be the game that he comes back. Well, we should have to see how he gets on, but we've seen he's back on the treadmill, he's working his way cautiously back towards fitness, and Dean Smith said he's not feeling any pain. So, I'll go with Rashica with an 8. I'll give Pukki and Williams both a 7 as well for the way they helped turn the game around. Tim Krul got through a few decent bits of work today, so he can have a 7. And Hanley just about, I think, can tip into a 7 as well. Got through a lot of work in that second half, maybe a little bit rusty in the first, but that's exactly why he wanted to play tonight, wasn't it? Because he wants to be ready for West Ham. We've seen that he's a player that sometimes takes a little while to get his match sharpness and match fitness back. So 7s for them. 6 for McLean, just for the energy and the work rate. Second half, he was better. Max Aarons came on, helped stabilise things, and very nearly wrapped it up to make it 2-0 in injury time. Sam Byram, more helpful, minutes in the tank, an hour in the tank for him. Still not back to his full powers, but won a few important headers and things like that. Didn't do much wrong. And Kabak, in the end, I'll give him a 6, but as it's been so often with him, a mixture of good and bad. There was one intersection in the first half where he charged forward on one of those buccaneering runs, and then their defender Ryan Ennis just slams into a tackle on him in the opposition half before he makes a tackle, and it ends up being wasted and Charlton go up the other end. So there were good and bad moments for him, but just about in the second half, I felt like Dean Smith or Craig Shakespeare had got into him and just calmed him down and said, look, you're too frenetic. Just concentrate on the basics. Stick next to Grant and just keep the ball out of the back of the net. That's all we want you to do today. Not go off on these charging runs and trying to win possession on halfway. Just keep it solid. And that's what he did, thankfully. Sargent, Sorensen and Lisa Malou can all have a 5. Lisa Malou just escapes a 4 for me because he showed a bit in the second half, but he had some pretty embarrassing moments in the first half, as a lot of them did, including the guys that I'm giving a 4 to, Yanulis, Dowell and Jollis. Dowell was anonymous. Jollis, similarly, although there was one unfortunate moment 5 minutes in when Sargent had cut the ball back to him and the ball was taken off his toes just as he was about to pull the trigger. Then it obviously could have been a totally different game, but it wasn't. And Yanulis, Dearlan Jayasimi, the former Norwich Academy player, scooted past him a couple of times with ease in the first half. He's supposed to be a Greek international up against a League One player who was released by Norwich because he was deemed not good enough. He was struggling to cope with him. Jayasimi was getting crosses in past him. Defensively, the guy just isn't doing enough. And going forward as well, there was one moment where the Charlton, for a sustained period of the first half, the Charlton fans were basically taking the mick out of Norwich. They were singing, Premier League, you're having a laugh, that's why you're going down. And one of those moments was Yanulis, lovely spread across the pitch from McLean, I think it was. Lisa Malou. McLean bursts forward, and then Yanulis also gets forward, but tries to poke the ball into left channel and just puts it straight out of play. It's just not good enough. It's not Premier League standard. So I'm afraid those boys have taken a big backward step, and I would imagine so with Dean Smith as well today. There's absolutely no doubt that if Rashica is fit enough, he starts ahead of Jollis or Dowell on Wednesday night. And I've kind of been in this camp the whole way along. I think Williams is a better balanced left back. He's not perfect. We haven't seen what we expected from him so far. He had a nightmare against Arsenal on Boxing Day, that is fair to say, but Norwich did as a whole. But in general this season, I feel he's a better balance. And him and Rashica were starting to show a bit of a partnership before Rashica had got injured, hadn't he? And we saw signs of that straight away again in the second half. There was one where Williams stepped forward, won the ball, and it ended up, I think that was the one that Rashica curled over the bar. So, some pretty bad performances from Norwich, particularly in that first half. They saved it in the second. They gradually got a hold of it, and they should have won it more comfortably and avoided the scare as they did have in the end. But yeah, I was really quite worried, and I thought that maybe I'd been too harsh in how I'd put it on Twitter at half time in the couple of minutes after I posted it, because I basically said, look, if they're not going to take this seriously, they should have told the fans so that they didn't bother to travel, because the only team that looked like they were going through the fourth round at that point were Charlton, and they were dreadful, really, that first half. There's no dressing it up. But then I saw that Dean Smith had seen the same thing. He makes a triple substitution at half-time. He is not happy at all. He makes the changes, and it works. And that is a big thing for him as a head coach, isn't it? To sort of feather in his cap type thing. And it did work. And Rashica and Pukki were the best players on the pitch after they'd come on. The first half, as I say, the Norwich fans, it was sort of gallows humour like it was at Palace. They were having to have fun and mess about because it was just so abject that there was nothing to get excited about. And they were saying if Sargent scores, we're on the pitch. There was a very, I don't want to big it up too much because it was a small pocket of fans, but towards the end of the first half, I'd say maybe 50 to 100 fans started singing, "We want Delia out. We want Delia out." And I don't think I've heard that before at a Norwich game. It didn't pick up. The whole away end was not singing it, but it just shows that if they cannot find a way of at least showing that their heads are above water during the second half of the season and being in the fight for Premier League survival, then there's a lot of pent-up anger and frustration amongst the diehards, and things could turn nasty this second half of the season. I don't want to go down that route. I hope I don't have to mention that again. But clearly, we all just want Norwich City to find some form and survive in the Premier League. This just goes without debate, doesn't it? But that's what we heard. That's a fact. That's what happened today. The first half, pretty uneventful as a whole. Jonathan Lecco poked a chance wide at the near post in the 33rd minute, and then Tim Krul made a good save from Alex Gilby a few minutes later. Had to sort of scoop it round his post because it was swerving, low shot. But otherwise, it was just that Jollis opportunity that I said. They had another chance early in the second half. Just remind myself his name, Mason Burstow, they had a bit of a little and large front two. They played a 3-1-4-2 formation, and Lecco was the speedier of the two. But yeah, Burstow wins a grapple with Hanley really, and then just blasts a shot over the top right corner. And then things start to turn, and it all sparks really from that moment I said a little while ago about Williams wins the ball back, Rashica cuts the ball back to Pukki, and then McLean almost gets in his way and just sort of has to poke a shot towards the bottom left corner, and the keeper makes a reasonably easy save. Rashica on the left wing on the right wing finds Sargent in the box. A couple of bad touches, as quite often we see when Sargent is far up the pitch. Eventually manages to turn, and then it's a pretty tame shot on it beyond the far post. And he did get a shot on target there a few minutes later. Lys Malou this time finds him in the box, and he just drilled it low towards the bottom right corner. Keeper's near post, keeper gets down to it and keeps it out. And the goal comes in the 79th minute. McLean plays Pukki into the right channel. Teemu can't force the shooting opportunity, so in the end cuts across the goal, finds Rashica, and he just manages to, there you go, as you can see, scoop the ball into the top of the net, right in front of the away fans. A big moment, and just, yeah, really released a lot of pressure. And spoken to me lots after the game, and we'll bring you all that, of course. But he was talking about how frustrating it was to get that injury when he was really starting to find his form. Just a little slip in training, he said, and then he ended up being basically 6 weeks out. So he's hungry to really bring success, and he settled in at Norwich. He really hopes that he can help them survive this year, and had a good chat with him after the game, and obviously he had a smile on his face, so that was nice, because we've not had many interviews like that recently. The other one that very nearly Lys Malou did also have a shot saved, teed up by Rashica, no surprise, and the chance in the first minute of injury time for Aarons, that was Pukki sending him down the right after Pukki had won the ball as well, and basically Ida had two men on him, so eventually went for it. The ball bounces off Stephen Henderson, it goes under him, and I don't really know how the ball goes over the bar, really. Just bounces in front of the goal line and ends up going over the crossbar. The fans were all ready to celebrate that one. And then, as I say, 5th minute of injury time, the keeper, Henderson, pumps a free kick from just inside the Norwich half to the back stick. That's headed back across goal. Chris Gunter, experienced defender, former Forest, and he rises above everyone and clatters a header against the crossbar, and Norwich scramble it away. And I think that is probably going to be our message to leave the stadium, so I will leave it there. But a 1-0 win in the FA Cup. Norwich are into the 4th round. We head to West Ham on Wednesday night, at least with a little tiny bit more of a jump in our step and a little bit more hope. But they have got to do a heck of a lot better than they did today, particularly in the first half. The players that did come back into it, Hanley, Kabak, Dowell, Krul and Sargent, they were the ones that started in place of Gunn, Gibson, Gilmore, Ida and Jollis. Aarons, Rashica and Pukki, as I've mentioned, they were all on the bench as well. Cantwell wasn't. Smith says that it's illness. From what we hear, there's nothing moved with transfers, although it's pretty clear his representatives are getting his name around, aren't they? Linked with quite a few clubs already. I'm yet to be convinced that anyone's going to stump up the money for him this month, but we shall see. Billy Gilmore also wasn't involved with today, had an injury and is a doubt for West Ham as well, so we'll see how things develop with him. John Rowe also couldn't be on the bench. He's self-isolating. Sounds like he's tested positive for COVID. Whether he's got symptoms or not, I don't know. So that meant Liam Gibbs was on the bench. He's an under-23s midfielder. They signed from Ipswich last year. So I'll leave it there with a little bit of a smile in the end. Certainly wasn't smiling at half-time, and I'm sure you weren't either. You can catch up on all the updates on Pinkham Plus. All the details of the draw, Paddy's pointers, ratings, everything will be up there in the hours ahead and tomorrow morning, including that interview with Milot Rashica. So thank you very much for watching. I hope the lawnmowers haven't been too bad, and we'll catch up with you very soon. Oh, and watch out for our new signing, our very own January transfer signing, the details of which will be revealed tomorrow.